Hey everyone, it's Xackadee. It's been a while since I made a video, and now here I am doing that thing again that I sometimes do. And yeah, I'll plan to make more. There are more videos coming. This isn't an update video though. If anything, this is probably, I guess, a Xack reacts of sorts. Because, E3 is around the corner, and everybody likes E3 when you're gamers, and I'm a gamer, and I make videos about video games. So why don't I talk about E3 and what I expect to see and what I think, you know? Okay, I think before I get started, I should probably address E3 itself directly. Like what it's for and what's great about it and maybe what's not great about it as well. See, before recording this, I went back and I read an article by Matt Lees from the Cool Ghosts website last year. Matt Lees is well known for being a guy who did all these videos called E3 Abridged, which were these funny little commentaries on E3 year after year. But he didn't do one for 2016. Instead, he wrote a post about how he's not going to do that and he's not going to do it anymore and why. And he has some pretty interesting arguments, some pretty specific arguments. I'm going to put a link to this blog post in the description because it is worth reading. I recommend you do it and seriously think about it. Don't just read it, think about whether or not he's right, whether or not he has a point, because I think he really does. I think it's at least something to consider. And it's not something that applies to E3 specifically, but kind of video games as a whole. The thing is, video games are a big part of culture, and E3 is a major event that celebrates that culture. But what do we actually do about our role in culture as gamers or as video game makers? A big point he made was that E3 last year was kind of in the middle. Like during E3 last year, there was the shooting in Orlando. Tons of people got shot by a man with a gun, and then less than 24 hours later, we had a press conference where video games where you happily shot people with guns to succeed and proceed in the game were unironically marketed. And there's no real apology for that, there's no real addressing of that, there's no real issues really being brought up at all when it comes to video games that do that. And frankly, tons of video games do that. It's another point he addresses in his post. I'm going to quote him directly here for this specific point here. He says, "AAA games that are rooted in realism consistently share one key trait. They prominently talk about contentious issues whilst miraculously managing to say absolutely nothing." That's a bit of hyperbole. The real issue isn't that these games say nothing, I would say. It's more that they say the wrong thing. You get far too many games that encourage violence without really doing anything to address the actual problems with violence in real life. I'm not making a case that video games cause violence, but they are a product of culture, and being a piece of artwork, in a sense, as the debate of whether or not video games are art or not, or even if you don't consider it that, even just a piece of entertainment, they still send messages. Anything that has creative effort put into it and tells a story or gives someone something to interact with and have responses from it, such as press button, kill enemy, get points, that kind of process teaches people things, even if it's just subtle, even if it's just little things. And when you have all these video games that repetitively even, teach players that it's great to kill people, you maybe should think about that, considering the number of times that people get killed in real life and it's not a great thing. That was kind of the point it was made. It was the fact that as far as our culture goes, as far as us as a people, as society go, we are just sort of glancing over these issues for the sake of trying to get a bit of voyeuristic fun or escapism that comes from a kind of violent nature that really isn't a good thing in real life, and yet nothing is addressed in games that have the power to at least talk about these things. Any game that talks about these issues, any game that treats these things as more serious topics within the narrative, within its realm of violence, is a much better game as a result of it. A lot of video games are fantasy games where you fight monsters, so the ethics are different there, but some games have you fighting monsters and humans, and they still take the time to maybe explain that and explore that. If I were to give you two examples, I would say Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance and Spec Ops: The Line. Those are two games that feature a lot of violence in them, like unironic violence in them, but it is treated seriously, and the games take the time to explore the violence, to explore what it's for, why the person who's doing it is doing it, and whether it's right or wrong. And it leaves the player with questions a lot of the time in games like that. Not necessarily those games, but ideally they should. They're very good games, and they kind of leave that kind of impact for me. So I totally would for you as well. So there is that. There is the issue of culture. There is the issue of what kind of messages video games send and how frequently video games, again, another point made in his article, promise to send these kind of messages, promise to explore these kind of topics, and then don't. Then they just give us another case where you unironically kill tons of people in order to make progress, and it's treated as a good thing. You're treated as a hero for gunning down tons of people. I know that these things are contentious issues, but if you have a gut reaction to this where you hear me talking about these issues as issues and say video games that have tons of violence in them are kind of questionable morally at best, and you think, no, you're spoiling the fun, maybe you should think, why am I spoiling the fun? I mean, what is the fun for you? How are you defining the fun? Where are you getting the fun from? And do these issues not exist? Am I wrong to talk about issues like this because they're correct, but they don't make things more enjoyable for you? And if that's the case, isn't that a problem? This is something that kind of goes into video games in general, and this is me kind of talking about that now. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert. I really wish I could give you a full-on lecture of research and some much heavier thoughts that I've had on the topic, but all I can give you is my opinion, and based on that article and based on the things that I'm saying here, like just my personal experience and thoughts and reflections on this thing, all I can tell you is that I do think we do need to seriously consider what video games actually give us in a long-term case. And I think a video game that sends a more powerful message than simply kill bad guys, have fun, is going to be a more worthwhile endeavour. Like, is your favourite game one of the Call of Duties? Is your favourite game one of the many bland shooters that get released every year? Or is your personal favourite game, is it something that sends you a more powerful message? Something that resonates with you more emotionally? Something that tells a story that gives you something to be inspired by? And I'm just going to assume that at least a majority of you will have your favourite game be a game that, if nothing else, gives you a semblance of that kind of thought or depth. If not, then it's probably because it's a really fun game and you just really enjoy playing it, which is also fine, but I think it's also just important to remember where we get our fun from. Another thing, I'll only mention one more thing about the article, which I think is also worth considering, which he does go on to say, and again, I'm going to quote him directly here. It's a perpetual loop that the industry often relies on, but I fail to see how this culture serves us. When you spend your whole life fixating on the future, what you've got today will always seem disappointing. He talks here about the industry itself, about the fact that not just E3 again, but E3 is a big celebration of this, how we are constantly getting new games after new games and new content for those games. Like, the gaming industry is quite genuinely impossible to keep up with. It's fun to joke about it to a point, but then you have to kind of sit back and think, isn't this kind of harmful to us? Isn't this kind of an industry that doesn't treat the consumer with a lot of respect? And there are definitely a lot of titles and definitely a lot of publishers that, if you're a gamer, you would probably have a good few thoughts on what examples could possibly fill those blanks. There's definitely just a lot of cases in gaming where consumers are not really treated as anything more than sacks of money to be looted by hitting the right pressure points. And in a sense, E3 is a celebration of that as well. It's a case where all these developers and companies come out and they try to market to us. They market to us what we want to hear. Hence the whole issue we get where they try to say, this game's really deep and complex and it'll make you think, and then they just give us a pretty generic game in the end that doesn't actually address half the things they said they would, or have even close to the kind of story or characters that we thought we would be getting. And that's natural for a lot of things. It's natural for any movie trailer, for anything, anytime you want to sell anything to someone, obviously you need to market it correctly, but I think that is kind of another issue. But that is, I think, kind of an issue with E3. We kind of get fed all this stuff that we don't need, and a lot of it is deceitful. It's trying to trick us, it's trying to manipulate us, and I gotta admit, it's kind of hard to enjoy E3 when you're getting that kind of treatment. It's hard to enjoy a lot of things when you get that kind of treatment. I mean, really, if you're a person who watches E3, if you're a person who keeps up with the press conferences, watches these live demonstrations of game developers coming out one at a time and showing off trailer after trailer, demo after demo, are you the kind of person who really, really cares about the things they say about how great gaming is as an industry, or about how many strides this company have taken in the last year or so? Or are you just there to see the trailers? Are you just there to see the content that we get from the conferences? We're not really there for the spectacle of it, we're there for the games. And at the end of the day, as much as there are issues to be raised, not just with E3 but in the gaming industry as a whole that Matt Lees brings up in his blog post, and I think as much as we should be aware of that, and as much as we should be sensible in how much we look up to E3 and as much as we enjoy E3, to remember and respect what games are and what their place is in our lives and the effect that they can have on us, because even if it doesn't affect the way we think, it's still a reflection of our values. And if our values are that it's okay to shoot people, then maybe we should reconsider our values and therefore reconsider our taste in games. It's just important to consider these things, and as a result maybe get not just have better moral principles as people, but also to play better games. And that is what I'm looking forward to about E3, to see the chance to maybe get better games. And yeah, I am just one of those people. I go to I don't go to E3, but I watch the E3 live press conferences, and I'm really just there for the trailers. Heck, I never even watched the press conferences until like a couple of years ago, which I only do to do so with friends. I can't be bothered watching it by myself anymore. It's just not fun, and you have to stay up late in the UK if you want to watch Sony's, which is really sucky. But the point of this is that the press conferences are fun to watch with friends, because then you can at least talk with someone else, talk with another blooming human being about the stuff that you're being shown, and to discuss it and to reflect on it as different people with different views. But before I started watching the press conferences with friends, I would prefer to just skip them altogether and just look at the trailers, because that's all that I'm really there for. That's all that E3 really gives to me that I really care about. And honestly, is that not the only thing that you really care about as well when it comes to E3? The chance to see new content from new games, or old games for that matter? I mean, we're getting the Crash trilogy, who knows what else could get announced. The point is this: I see E3 as a chance for developers to come forward and produce the fruits of their labour, to show us what they've made and to try and pitch to us what it is they're making. I think we should be wary of what we're getting what's getting marketed to us, especially when it comes to EA and Microsoft and even Ubisoft to an extent. A lot of games that get shown to us at E3, a lot of it is just the same thing. A lot of it really is the same thing over and over again, with different names, different skins, different settings. But at the end of the day, are we getting anything fresh? That's why I'm looking for things fresh at E3. So in regards to what I'm looking for at E3, because I will be watching the conferences with some friends and probably making fun of it a lot, because it is very silly and redonkulous a lot. I will be looking for games that I will hope to take an interest in, but for the right reasons, if that makes sense. I'll see if any games, from the way they're marketed to us, do have the potential to have anything good in them, and then as the game comes out, as the game gets closer to release, just have a more methodical approach to ascertaining the quality of it and seeing if it is, if it has any worthwhile value that I would be personally interested in. So E3 is a starting point for a lot of games to get pitched. I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think E3 is a bad thing in itself. I just think there is a danger when it comes to the culture and the industry about how we receive things and how we then in return give back from what we've received. I don't know, I'm losing my words here. But I hope you take my point. I hope you at least somewhat get what I'm trying to get at, and that you are respecting my opinion here and giving me at least some kind of credit here when if you want to give your opinion on this matter. If you want to give your opinion on this matter, I encourage it. I want to hear what you think, but please be respectful if you do. So I've talked long enough, and I've definitely been talking about the subject in a way that's probably way different from what you were expecting me to say, but I think this is an important video to make, and but I don't want to disappoint you guys. I will say, going into E3, that I am looking forward to the opportunity for new games, because it is a hobby that I love. It is something I'm really into, and E3 is a chance for developers to promote these things in an environment that's devoted to that promotion. I think there are dodgy things about it, but overall, at the end of the day, developers got to make money. They got to do their jobs. They got to make games. It is an industry. It has to work. I think E3 can stand to be better, and I agree with a lot of what Matt Lee says. Probably not all of it, but like I said, the blog is worth reading. I'm not saying you have to agree with it. I'm just saying, just check it out and think about it. Think about what effect it might have and whether or not it's true. But Yes, to conclude, I guess I'll just say that every E3, the Sony press conference is the only press conference that's really grabbed me. It's the only one that ever has games that I'm really interested in, so I'll be keeping my eyes open on that, but I will just, throughout the thing, be looking out for particular games. And if there are any games that I'm particularly looking for, I am most excited to see more of the Final Fantasy VII Remake, just being a big Final Fantasy VII fan. I'm not going to watch any Kingdom Hearts 3 trailers if they come up. If Kingdom Hearts 3 does make an appearance, that is the official point where my news blackout begins and I just stop keeping up with Kingdom Hearts news. At that point, I will unsubscribe from all Kingdom Hearts YouTube channels, I will disable all my Kingdom Hearts bookmarks, I will stop keeping up with Kingdom Hearts in any capacity whatsoever, because I want to just stay away from any news of the game and find out fresh what's in it when I get the game and play it, because I inevitably will. It's just a game that I'm pretty invested in at this point. As much as I'm a fan of The Last of Us, and people are talking about The Last of Us 2 being there, I'm sure Naughty Dog will have to show something there. It's Naughty Dog, and they weren't at last year's E3, so I think we're due. But personally, honestly, all I really want is more Jack and Daxter. Naughty Dog, please give us Jack and Daxter back. I miss them so. Come to think about it, a Ratchet and Clank sequel would also be good, because we got the reboot, and I'd kind of like to see something continue on from the reboot. I'd like to see more of that. It's not even really a reboot as they call it, it's like a reimagining. Well, can we get a reimagining of the rest of the series? I'd like to see that. I just want to see the Ratchet and Clank series go forward, because we haven't heard from them in a while. I'm not really sure what other video games to talk about, other than that Square Enix were commissioned to make an Avengers video game, like a Marvel Avengers video game, so I hope to see that. On the subject of Marvel video games, we've also got Insomniac. They're making this Spider-Man video game, which I hope to see more of because I'm a Spider-Man fan. And Detroit Become Human. It's another David Cage game, and I know that's a very split thing. Oh no, it's Quantic Dream. They have such good and bad in them, and it's not perfect and all that, but I don't care. I thought Heavy Rain was a really fascinating attempt at doing something different with video games, but still giving us something interesting, something new, something interactive. And look, I like a game that where you have choices. I like the Telltale games. I like the choose your own adventure sort of style of those things, and the choices, how they impact the game, and games with multiple endings and that sort of thing. So Heavy Rain did it great, Beyond Two Souls did not. So I'm going to keep a close eye on Detroit Become Human, because I love the concept of it. I really loved the trailer that they showed of it at, was it last year's E3? I think it was last year's E3. And I just, if they get it more like Heavy Rain and less like Detroit, less like Beyond Two Souls, which it sounds like they're doing, then I have high hopes for it, and I will keep an eye on it, and I will desperately hope it's good, because that is a game that I'm very much anticipating. Apart from that, I can't say there's anything in E3 that I'm particularly looking forward to. I've already named all the big ones that I'll be watching out for. Apart from that, I guess just keep our eyes open for any new games that will get announced and see if they'll captivate us and maybe give us something worthwhile to play. So that's that. It's a much more serious video than you were probably expecting, but those are my thoughts pre-E3. We'll wait and see what comes around the corner, what E3 gives us, but yeah, like I said, there's that Matt Lee's article which I think is worth reading, and these are just my thoughts and reflections on the subject as a whole, which kind of turned into unintelligible ramblings towards the end of it, but I think I was going somewhere pretty good with it at some point, so stay with that part of the video, and that's the best part. Anyway, thank you for watching, and if you thought this was interesting, if you thought I had something somewhat reasonable to say, then if you want, you can follow me on Twitter, or I don't know, I have a PlayStation Network account, and I have a community for any Xackadee fans, so yeah, you want to get on that action, and we could maybe play some video games together, which has never happened, but maybe one day it will. That's all. Thanks for watching, and yeah, what were your thoughts? What are you looking forward to from E3, and how do you feel about E3 as a whole? Where does it stand in your book? You know, I don't want to be the only person shoving my opinions in anyone's face, so I hope the comment section is you guys talking about whatever you think matters to you in that regard, and we can have proper discussions and stuff. Does it come across that I'm lonely at all? I think I ask for a lot of comments in my videos, and I feel like I do that too much, but look, I just want to have, like, if I'm going to have subscribers, I just want my community to be interactive. I want to talk to you guys. I want to recognize that you're people watching this video and having thoughts, rather than just, views, So, if you guys want to share your thoughts, then do so, and I will gladly read them and respond to them as I see fit. So, yeah. Thank you for watching, and more videos will be on the way, I promise. I'll try and do a post-E3 Xack Reacts if there's anything particular to comment on. So that's that. This is definitely far too long. I'm going to turn the camera off now. Okay.